Welcome, Pathfinders, to the Find the Path Adventures research check for the Bestiary 3. Sorry, I had to look up my notes.
Man, it feels like it's been a while since we did
it's
one of
been,
these.
it feels like it's been a very
It's
long time.
been it's been it's been a time.
Yeah, I apologize to everyone out there who's been waiting impatiently for that. I am Rick Sandage. I don't even have to look at my notes for that. I am joined by Jordan Jenkins. I don't have to look at my notes for that either.
Hey, look at that.
There you go. And we're going to be talking about the Bestiary 3 today, which is this beautiful, beautiful book
I
right
was gonna
here.
say you've actually got the hardcover of it.
Yeah, no. I don't have to stick my arms up in the air and try to figure out wherever the thing is around me.
Oh yeah, I didn't put
I
one
never know.
on the stream, so you don't have to worry about that
Oh,
anyway.
well, then
It's
now
a good
people
thing you
can
held it
actually,
up.
yeah, you can actually see the book so that you don't buy the wrong Bestiary 3, since that is the name of the previous Bestiary 3 as well.
They did change the cover art up, so there's that.
They did. But yeah, we're going to be doing a not really review, a product discussion pertaining towards the Bestiary 3, because important note is we are partners with Paizo, and therefore we are not considered impartial, and I would not come to us as an impartial news source. However, we ourselves, generally speaking, are impartial, but
We like Paizo though. We're biased
yes, we
because
are
we like
partnered.
Paizo.
Yeah. They did not provide me with this copy or anything. I bought this with my own hard cash. So yeah, I guess we'll dive in. We can talk a little bit about this cover here. I like the cover. I feel like a broken record because every single time that I talk about a Pathfinder book for 2E, I've said that I like the cover, and that's generally speaking still just true.
I mean, every one of the bestiaries has honestly been us going, this is awesome. I love this art. They've got so many cool things. I love how they make the monsters feel unique. So, like, sum up, this is probably what we're going to say.
Good job, Jordan. Let's go home.
I know, exactly, right?
No, we do have some things to talk about here. So first off, we've got the cover for the book, since Jordan didn't have one put up there. Let me find a way that doesn't get a ton of glare on it. There you go. That's not too bad. So yeah, it's got a cool Clockwork Dragon in the background, breathing some fire. A
Which
whole bunch
I
of
personally
skeletons
love
in the
Clockwork, so
foreground.
that's great.
Yeah, a whole bunch of skeletons in the foreground, which I think, I'm not entirely positive, but it looks like that shield is the same design as Velros's,
Oh,
where it has
maybe.
that same, like, the same red and the white.
Yeah, I didn't really
Uh,
notice that when I was looking at it,
and the
so
banners over there too. So I'm wondering if that's like these are Belros's old buddies.
maybe.
And then yeah, there's some tooth fairies ripping teeth out of skeletons.
Which, see our podcast recording of Tyrant's Grasp that's on our Patreon. If you want to know about the toofs. Or
Yep.
teeth.
So, yep, teeth. So it's a very nice cover. I like the design. It's almost a little muted in comparison to some of the other ones. Like the color
Yeah, it
scheme is
is.
very like light greens and yellows, and I like it. It doesn't jump as much as the other ones, although the actual like Pathfinder logo and everything pops out a little bit more because the background has this kind of uniformed color to it.
Well, and I like that there's like some clear interaction between the different elements. So you've got like the
Yeah.
tooth fairy taking one of the skeleton's tooth. Like
Yeah.
I like that interaction because they have kind of done this thing where it's kind of this scene, but none of them are really interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they're having like the Avengers slow pan circle thing where they're all just
Yeah,
standing there doing cool poses independently.
pretty much. Yeah.
So not the case here. Yeah, but I guess let's go ahead and crack this open. I'll literally crack mine open there.
Yep. I'm on the PDF.
Yeah, so there's an introduction. I'm not really going to get into the introduction. It's kind of standard fare of, this is how you can read these books. There you go. I think it's all like 3 pages long. And then it gets into monsters A to Z.
Pretty much. And it's a huge list of monsters.
Yeah.
It's like, what,
Yeah.
4 pages on the index?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. We are not going to go through all of them. We do not have that amount of time.
We'll go through the highlights.
We're gonna hit a couple of highlights, a few things that I took some notes on, things that I particularly liked when I was going through here, and we had some great questions from our Discord. We do have a Discord. It's pretty great. You can gain access to it if you're not already a member of our Discord by going to the find-path.com website and click on a little link, and it'll take you to the Discord, and you can go over there and chat with people. They are all fine people on there. I highly appreciate them. They did provide us some great questions, which are going to cover a lot of stuff later on. So I'm just going to hit some highlights that weren't quite covered in there. So first off, and this is a little bit of a nod also to friend of the pod as well as longtime listener. TJ, who I may or may not be with us in the stream today. I don't know, because I don't have access to who's making comments or anything like that. Oh, that does remind me, if you have any questions of your own, please post them in the comments, and then we'll get to the end of this. We'll answer those
he is
questions
not in the chat,
TJ.
so we'll be singing his praises without him around.
That's fine. So yeah, just a fun mention here. There's the Camel is statted out in this book. So if you want a Camel, you can now get access to the Camel, which was actually written and designed by a friend of the pod, TJ, who wrote this, as he stated, in honor of Honor and Victory from the
Mummy's Mask show. Yeah,
he also wrote.
Oh, sorry, you're about to say the same thing.
I was just gonna say.
Oh yeah, he also did the Coral Capuchin, which is super cute. Yeah. And I want one for a pet, even if they have a cursed bite.
Yeah. If anyone else in our chat are contributors as well, please let us know. So other than continuing on from there, there are Clockwork Constructs. There are lots of Clockwork Constructs in here. I like Clockwork Constructs.
They're my favorite type. Yeah, I was like, they're my favorite creature type. So getting to see them, I like what they did with the Clockwork Spy. It looks really cool now. Clockwork Dragon, also cool. I like that they do change how constructs kind of work a little bit. Because like the self-destruct action that they take now when they hit 0 hit points, like it like literally sets a timer for like 6 seconds later it blows up, so you have like 6 seconds to disable them, or else all the stuff with them just explodes out. It's really cool. Yeah,
they do a lot of fun things like that, because where they talk about winding in the Clockworks, they talk about actually using thievery to disable device on Clockworks.
Yeah, so if you find one, you
can down faster.
Yeah, you can disable the construct.
And I love it because it almost, again, it makes them almost, it makes them stand out a lot from just having a stone golem. It differentiates this type of construct from the standard type of construct, which I guess would be stone golem, is what I've decided.
Yeah, I think like the standards like stone or iron golems. Yeah. Speaking of which, on golems, there are a lot of different types of golems that they put in this. A lot of the more advanced golems, so mithril golems, fossil golems, things like that. I like what they've done with golems just in general, where now they don't just have magic immunity. Like, that's not a thing anymore. What they have is they have things that they are healed by, things that they take extra damage from, and things that will slow them down. So that is unique to each different type of creature, which is I think really flavorful, and it means that we don't all just go, well, the wizard's going to be useless in this fight, so I like that they made it so that it's like, okay, as long as the wizard doesn't use transmutation, he's going to still be able to hurt this thing.
Yeah, they do a lot to kind of differentiate the variety of different creatures that are of the same type, but still provide them with enough flavor so it's not just, okay, rinse and repeat as far as this creature is concerned. Yeah, I suppose moving on from there, we've got the Clockwork Golems. There are two notable old friends of the podcast that have returned in this book.
You say that like I'm not going to be just disgusted that they exist.
the first one being the Baycock, which makes its return.
Dude, Baycocks are vicious. Some of the worst fights I've run for people have been swarms of Baycocks, and it's just like, why would you put 10 of them in this room?
Yeah. They just crowd them in here and just let them loose.
Yeah, they're vicious.
So I mean, they've got their devouring life, where if they're adjacent to a paralyzed creature, they can basically drain the life out of them. They can still do their arrow of despair, which can and it's interesting because I don't remember this from the original Baycock. It defines this as creates an invisible arrow of bone.
They're visible in first edition.
Yeah. And then if it hits, when it strikes someone, it strikes you with loneliness and despair. Yeah. Which is just, it's pretty great how they translated it over. It keeps a whole lot of the same fun. And in addition to that, the Guaycubo is in here as well.
Oh, so dude, those things.
Have enough.
I don't want to talk about those. Those things are bad. Those things are like my least favorite undead.
The Guaycubo are just as fun in second edition, it seems, as they were in first. So
great.
I think that those are
just
good
great.
additions.
Now we're going to find one of them in Hell's Rebels.
I'm going to jump into the case unless you had something to add into the the early letters there?
Not in the early letters, I don't think. I think we hit most of the major ones. It wouldn't be a bestiary if there wasn't different types of dragons.
Yeah.
One of the things they've done that I really like, that they've started doing is when they introduce new monsters of the same type that have been in a previous bestiary, they actually redefine what those things are. So if you go to like the divs, they have a little paragraph that says, by the way, these are what divs are, and then here are the new divs. And I appreciate that they take that time, because if you, for instance, flip to it and it's been a while since you've looked in a bestiary, being like, when did these first come out so I could look up what these actually are? Having that there makes it really convenient for those of us who don't GM all the time like Rick.
That's fair. Well, and even then, I still need a refresher every once in a while. I sound as intelligent as I do because I read before I start.
Yeah, that's,
Keep it fresh in the memory.
Some of us don't prep. We just go.
Well,
I don't have time to prep.
I always suggest prep.
I'm a busy professional.
So, yeah, when we jump into the Ks, I was a little surprised to see him included in here, but this book does include the Krampus.
Which is like I still think it's weird that the Krampus is statted out, because I don't associate that as like a fantasy thing. That's just like a weird German, like variant on Christmas kind of thing is what I always view it as. So it's fun to see like
weird Christmas thing.
It is a weird Christmas thing because it's also seasonal, right? Like it's a seasonal monster. Yeah. Nobody's gonna throw a Krampus at you in July.
Well, actually, funny enough, I made a note in here in my notes that I said, stated, blah, 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 blah. Krampus is stated out in here if you want to run a fun, albeit high level Christmas themed adventure. It's a ways off, but of course you could also do Christmas in July.
It's funny because you put that on there. Yeah. No, it's I was gonna say the Krampus is always a ridiculous. What's the CR in this one?
21, I think. Yeah.
21.
Creature
okay.
20.
It's weirdly not even the highest creature in this book.
Oh no, there are some powerful creatures in here, but yeah, it is a fun, strange little monster. So I just wanted to point that out in there because I know that there are a lot of Krampus fans. He's had a weird resurgence, despite the fact that I think every movie that's ever been made of him's been terrible.
Oh yeah, no, it's weird. Like there's like all kinds of stuff that I've seen in like popular media with the Krampus that makes no sense to me at all.
So jumping around up, I skipped this one. That was in the C's. Jumping back real quick, they do include Cavalry Brigades in here, which actually includes the Hell Knight Cavalry Brigade, which is neat. That explores the troop mechanics, which is something that they kind of introduced in this book, or brought back in.
I was going to say, because they had it in first edition, but it was
late.
Very late, and was never really like greatly utilized. Like I know of like one adventure path that used it, but it was like in one book.
Yeah. And so bringing that back in is interesting. I like the way that they do troops. We'll probably talk about those a little bit later on. I think some people asked some questions about it, but I did just want to point out the Hell Knight Cavalry there, because the artwork for the Hell Knights is always great, and including them as an example, the cavalry unit, I think is a pretty solid option.
Yeah, because let's be real, you're not going to be run down by like the good people. You have to pick the bad people. And no, it's like so iconic to the setting also to have like the Hell Knights being the opponent,
fully arrayed and ready for battle.
Yep, in the nice like line that makes good for television, kind of thing, where you see like the endless line of them in a line ready to charge.
Which, mind you, like that would be a couple different units, I think.
Oh yeah, it'd be several troops.
Line, but
of them,
So, on the subject of high-level creatures, there's one monster in here that I was completely surprised to see in here, and pleasantly surprised when I ran into it when I was flipping through this book. And their take on it is very interesting, and that is the Ouroboros.
Yeah.
It caught me completely off guard, in large part because it's the classic symbol, the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
That you can see throughout, well, honestly throughout history, but you see it a lot in anything that you research pertaining towards the occult. I think throwback in Mummy's Mask that you guys fought a certain barefoot man who had an Ouroboros tattoo on his forehead.
Yeah.
In this case, however, apparently it is a snake made up of a whole bunch of tiny snakes.
That's weird. There's a couple things in there that are things that are made from a bunch of other things. Like there's a I forget what they're called, but it's like an eel creature that's made of like dozens of other eels. It's like some aberration. Like that's apparently like a weird theme they've got going in this book.
The worm that walks and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
But it's got some really neat abilities that jumped out at me. First off, it has a 100-foot movement speed and 100-foot fly speed, which I imagine means it rolls like a tire.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking it was. That it just rolls over you.
And also, it's one of its primary forms of damage is just body. It just rolls over you, I suppose, crushes you for some damage, as well as the incalculable fangs.
Yes.
Where apparently just a whole bunch of snakes just bite onto you.
I appreciate also it says that it understands Aklo but can't speak because it's got like its tail in its mouth.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Oh, actually, it does specify in here that while eating its tail, it can't make maw strikes or tail strikes, and its speed is 50 feet.
Ah, yes. There you go.
So it does make a very slow roll at you.
Slow being 50 feet in a game where everybody averages 25 is still twice the speed of everybody else.
But yeah, I think it has one of my favorite abilities in here, which is... I had it and then I lost it. Whenever it takes slashing or piercing damage, or when the Devour Tail ends, blood gushes from the wound in a 15-foot cone, and each creature takes acid damage. Creature that takes any damage is exposed to Ouroboros regenerative blood, so they actually start regenerating. But where the blood falls upon the ground, it creates magical snakes that bite anyone that passes.
Yes,
it creates hazardous terrain that deals 17 points of damage and 5 poison damage to any non-Ouroboros creature that moves through the square.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it's interesting because it does a good thing and a bad thing, and like the Coral Capuchin also does that, where its bite has a curse and it lets you double the amount of time you can spend underwater, but also gives you like you dehydrate really fast, so you have to like get water every minute. So it's fun to find these things that like it's a double-edged sword. Like it seems like it's kind of good, but it's also really bad.
Well, that's the regenerative blood that it gives you. Also, it gives you regeneration, but it also makes you slow and clumsy. And then stage 2 makes you even slower and more clumsy. And then stage 3, you just collapse into a mass of snakes.
Yep. Bye.
Because you're permanently transformed into snakes.
Because reasons. And
you join the Ouroboros. It's a fun challenge rating 21 monster. So if you're listening to this and going, how the heck is that balanced? It's balanced because you could have 10th level spells.
Yeah, so pretty much.
Take that for what you will. Let's see, what other monsters do we want to talk about? There's the Sikill that are back in here.
I was gonna say there's a lot of things that like you'll see in our adventures that we play that kind of make a resurgence. So like Osteovites are in again. They have you were talking about it. They have the Grimples have made an appearance from those who have listened to our Hell's Rebels.
Yep, Grimples are back. Our Hell's Rebels Grimples are slightly different. They're Kintargan Grimples. They're a subspecies.
Which is why the stats are different and the abilities are different. That's totally what we're going with.
Yep. But again, they brought the Sikill in here, including the really disgusting pig Sikill thing that you guys had fought previously in Tyrant's Grasp.
Yep.
Yeah. Although now it apparently has a pus spray.
Great. What is it with bodily fluids being sprayed around, man?
Yeah,
everybody likes a little spray.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, there is a ton of stuff in this book. Like, I didn't even realize Night Gaunts weren't in any of the previous bestiaries. So, like,
there's a lot of Lovecraftian things in here.
Yeah,
the Night Gaunts are in here. The Migos are in here.
Yeah.
The Chantil, I believe that's the proper term. Big pterodactyl monsters from Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. So
yeah, there's
it's neat.
I was gonna say it's kind of a mandatory thing to put at least one like Lovecraftian character in every bestiary. So there's always something.
There's a lot of different things, and the last thing I was going to draw attention to as far as my pass through went is the Tooth Fairies.
Yep.
They're on the cover of this, so obviously they're going to be in here. They kept all the flavor for the first edition, but so they still explode when they die into horrible tartar dust or plaque dust that sprays around everywhere. There's some interesting things. First off, there's a swarm option, so they can come in swarms now.
Woo!
I think they could have
Great.
technically before, but yeah. In addition to that, I find it interesting that they don't specifically state that they remove teeth anymore. With their pliers, they have a tooth tug that causes damage, but it doesn't explicitly state that they remove the tooth when they cause the damage. Just that they grab onto your mouth and start trying to rip your teeth out.
Yeah. So there's like some kind of flavor lost, I guess, with that, but it's also really hard to fix that.
Well,
Like,
I think it falls in. I think it's almost less flavor loss, and I think it falls almost more into a GM discretion, where you
that's
don't
fair.
have to
Yeah.
say, if you have someone. I think I put a warning on the episode that included the tooth fairies, just because some people
Body horror is not their thing. Yeah.
Well, like me personally, not to delve too far into this, like me personally, body horror doesn't usually bother me. Except, and body horror loves to do this, removing people's fingernails.
Ooh.
Something about when you see the fingernails come off. Yeah. There's a certain scene, I think it was it District 9, where that happens.
Oh, yeah,
and that
yeah.
made me pretty uncomfortable. So I'm pretty good at things, but that's the one that bothers me.
Yeah, no, for me it's definitely the teeth thing, because I've had nightmares where like my teeth start falling out, and like you wake up in a cold sweat and all of that stuff. So like that one always gets me, because I'm just like, oh, I felt that before and it's not fun.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I think that's just a psychological trauma from all of us as children, when like you had a loose tooth and your parents would be like, here, have an apple, and then you bite into it and you're like, oh god, my tooth.
I did look it up. Apparently it's caused by extreme stress. So there you go. Stress dreams will sometimes cause you to be having your teeth fall out for some reason.
Well, all us diving into our love-hate of body horror, but which, by the way, this book also, a lot of body horror. There's a lot of
body
weird,
horror,
twisted creatures in this. So it kind of taps into that same angle. It's all on theme. Any monsters you want to give a shout out to that we missed going through there?
Man, there's a bunch of fun ones. I mean, the interesting thing about it is they've put the monsters in that used to be playable. So like there's like Gathlanes, there's Gahorns, there's I'm trying to think what else they have in here that's they used to be playable. Unfortunately, give no rules on how to play them, so don't think you can play them off of this. This isn't Starfinder.
Not yet.
The other thing I think is really interesting that they do is there's some new stuff that they've put in that maybe I haven't seen it. Maybe it was in later bestiaries, but like living symbols, which is a new creature type for like animated.
Those were in 1E.
Oh, were they in 1E? Okay.
Because I thought one because I wouldn't even consider this a spoiler because I added it in. I threw one in when I was running through Rise of the Rune Lords, and you were going through a certain part of book 5, and I decided to add one in as this.
Wait, no. I remember that. I thought that was some kind of just like magic effect. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I enjoyed the idea of the living symbol too much, not to work it in an adventure path that's all about runes.
Fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen that. And so it's kind of cool to see a bunch of different types of symbols, like, living graffiti and things like that, which just seems like those are like, again, those kind of memorable things that come out.
Yeah.
Like an arcane ruin that just comes to life and starts doing magic at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think the living graffiti is new.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here that I'm pretty positive is new. So it's not just like this is just stuff from 1E that you're getting. There's definitely some new stuff in here, or at least stuff that for me was new.
Some like, fun new ideas.
Yeah, so there's definitely some very cool stuff, especially a lot of stuff that comes from like Asian influence. That I think is really interesting. Like there's a ton of stuff that like if you're I guess up on your Shintoism, maybe you understand it a little bit better, but it felt like it was just straight out of the like Japanese horror movies and stuff. What I actually just pulled it up. It's the
vampires.
Like the Bozu. That's like it's a guy that's like doing the kind of backbend arch, but his head's on the wrong way, which feels like it's very like the creepy girl that just like does the little skittering like go away thing that they do in those movies.
Yeah, I had actually noticed the same thing, that there are a lot of creatures taken from Asian mythology and culture,
Which I love,
in
by the way.
here, or at
Love
the very
that.
least inspired by some. Yeah, and it's great. I'm kind of curious because I feel like some of these monsters are probably a common thing that happened in first edition is many of the bestiaries would include a collection of all of the back matter monsters from the adventure paths leading
Yeah.
their way up to it. And I almost feel like they included some of these more what we would consider in the Galarian setting would be Tianjia themed creatures in anticipation of Fist of the Ruby Phoenix.
I mean, that would fit in terms of that, because like I feel like Bestiary 2 had a fair number of like more of that like African themed kind of stuff, kind of in preparation for Strength of Thousands. So
yeah, and I can't remember quite, but I think maybe it was in the first edition Bestiary 3 that it had a large number of Eastern influenced creatures because it was in preparation for Jade Regent. So mind you, I'm conjecturing there. I don't have any direct line to well, I technically do have a couple direct lines to Paizo, but I have not tapped into any of the direct lines that we have to Paizo.
So. I was gonna say, anybody in the chat who works for Paizo, feel free to confirm our suspicions.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, any other creatures you want to shout out to?
Oh man. Not really. Like I said, there's a lot of like I would say almost fan favorites that have come back. Like Moftet make an appearance in this. Gear Tablilu.
Yeah.
You know, are back. There's the div. I think it's the div that we actually fought at the beginning of Mummy's Mask in like the first book, the one that's just like a head or whatever.
Flying head div.
Yeah, the flying head div.
Yeah, there were a surprising number of these. I was like, I've run this. I've run that. I've run this.
There's no, even for me, like I've only run like one adventure path, and even there's stuff in here that I was like, I remember running that. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So they, again, especially with Tyrant's Grass tends to tap into a lot of the more obscure creatures from
because it was the last hurrah, you know,
the first edition line. Yeah, it was the last hurrah. They did a lot out of B5 and B6, especially in book 1. And I think that was a lot of just these are the monsters that have never gotten a chance to really be showcased.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, I feel like the most popular of those have now made their way into this for reasons we'll get into here in just a minute. And as such, I went through here and went, wow, this is like playing the FTP greatest hits as you're going through this list of like, you want to run all these monsters.
Yeah, it is funny because somebody in the chat, Graph, actually said the same thing. Like the book feels like, you know, it's like old friends coming home after you haven't seen them for a while. I was like, I mean, I had that feeling for sure. Some of it in Dread, like when I saw the Guaykubu was in there, I was like, I'm not happy.
Yeah. Like now I can add this to Hell's Rebels and not have to make a
stat block for it. Yeah.
Well, do we want to dive into some questions here from L Discord?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. There's also tons of questions in the chat, so we'll spend the rest of our time probably just answering questions.
Well, again, that's kind of the thing is we could go monster by monster and all the rest of that, but I don't really feel.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's honestly go buy this book. Like we all know this is an essential buy. Like go buy this book. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I will mention lastly that there is the appendix section. The appendix section does cover the troop rules. I do find the troop rules very interesting. We actually have a question about it from the Discord, so I'll cover it a little bit more there. I really like the troop rules.
Yeah, that and I like the template. The way they've done templates now is very interesting.
Yeah. So first Discord question comes from Lewis. What's the best Ancestry-like creature introduced in this book?
Ooh, that is a hard pick. One, I'm partial to Gathlane myself, so like, because I played one in Strange Aeons, so I'm a little partial to Gathlane just because I've played that before. Although they are completely different now, like not nearly as differentiated because like Gathlane, there was multiple different types of Gathlane that you could be. So that's probably my pick. Like I said, I'm kind of biased. I don't know, Rick, what's yours?
I'm gonna go for an odd one, and I'm gonna take ancestry, the question there of ancestry-like creature, and twist it a little bit into heritage-like creature, and that's the Mortic. And
Oh, yeah.
so the Mortic are basically humanoids that have been exposed to massive amounts of negative energy. They're very common in large part because of the events of, that have even played out a little bit in our Patreon exclusive Tyrant's Grasp actual play.
So you're telling me
That
if Octavius dies, I can play a Mortic?
Not yet. I'm not jumping into second edition. That's
Dang
not
it.
happening.
Dang it.
Promise you. Yeah, so basically they've been exposed, and so they're interesting in that they are still alive. They've been exposed to so much negative energy that they're still alive, but it has warped the fabric of their being. So they show like elves, humans, orcs, I think, and gnomes in here. And it affects each of them in a separate way, where it's like, okay, well, the only thing that you're alive, but the only thing that can physically sustain you any longer is living flesh. You don't gain nourishment from anything else.
Woo!
And so, it's like, okay, well, great. I've got to eat live rats or something like that if you're going for the, less.
The less awful aspect of eating
you're not eating people
creatures.
At that point, but, still, you definitely wouldn't make any friends with PETA. But I find them very interesting because it gets into that darker area of, you can play that kind of damn fear character, except for
way darker.
Now you're really tortured by it.
I was like, it's really dark. Like it, I like that there's a section that mentions that so humans that become Mortics are known as Gurgists. They retain their personality and intelligence, but their bodies rot with every beat of their heart. They ceaselessly crave raw meat. Consuming large quantities can slow or even reverse their body's putrefaction for a short time. And it like literally you have to eat or else you will just fall to pieces.
Yeah. And so I think you could probably do something interesting with a heritage based off of that.
I feel like the problem is you'd have to find a way to make it like slightly more stable.
Yeah, that's what you would honestly have to do. You'd have to take basic elements of it, kind of flavor text around that, but you could still do something cool like the life leech ability of the orc, where they can bite onto people and drain their life essence and stuff like that. Like that would be a cool tree to be able to pursue your way down if you're going through ancestry feats.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things in this book that I'd like to see ancestry feats to get a flavor of, because there's some really cool stuff that some of the monsters get that I'd like to get just a teeny tiny taste of. Not the eating human flesh part, like teeny tiny taste, but like there's some interesting ones. Like they mentioned like the life leecher Mortic orc, which was really cool. There's a couple of like really interesting like planar creatures. So like if you're going for like one of those like planes touched type builds to do some of the interesting stuff that you have there. Like one of them that I wanted to call out that was actually really cool is called oh my gosh, what is it? Here it is. A Consonite Choir, which is floods of crystalline blades that surge through the caverns and tunnels of the plains of Earth. Like, can I get a conjuration spell to just make that? Because that sounds super cool. Because they're literally just like flute-shaped shards of crystal that just move like they're a flock of birds. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, so there's some interesting stuff there that like I wish they did that. Because like by the way, Consonant Choir is a creature 13, so they are nothing to mess with. They're also gargantuan, so nothing to mess with. But I'd like to like be able to summon a small little swarm of them or something like that.
All right, let's see. Lord Deathquake had a question for us. What is your favorite edition in the book, and why is it the Teeth Fairies?
I love Fae. I just like the Fae. They're always weird.
Yeah. Mine is honestly because I also enjoy Fae, but I actually like Fae with that sinister element to them.
Yeah, you don't like the nice Fae, like you like the ones that are like the satyrs and stuff.
I'll take a helpful dryad every once in a while, that's fine, but this like, here's your Fae with the side of body horror. That's kind of It's a little bit more my speed, where it's that it's a bit more the Guillermo del Toro,
Yeah.
labyrinth kind of Pan's Labyrinth kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, they're Fae, but there's something wrong with this.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like Fae are just one of those things that, like, because they're chaotic, it makes it much more interesting to interact with them. Like, because you can find a satyr that's not a total like jerk, but like 90% of the time they're probably going to be jerks, but there's always that 10% chance that they might be on the somewhat level.
So there's a follow-up question to that one, which is
Really?
from Luis Loza, Paizo's own, who asks, what is your favorite monster, and why is it the animated silverware swarm?
First off, if you animate anything and turn it into a swarm, it's going to be hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing funnier than seeing like a bunch of candlesticks beating you over the head. Like, that's just part of it. Like, animate anything is fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's an
That's
animated
fair.
trebuchet in this book. Like, hilarious. Like, just by the fact that I don't know how it works, but it's just super weird.
Yeah. So I have a very interesting story. I'll keep this tangent rather short. But Beauty and the Beast. I went and saw that movie with my sister. I think I was 6 years old when that movie came out. I saw it in theaters. And, as a 6-year-old little boy and all the rest of that stuff, I'm like, stupid love story, blah, blah, blah. All that being said, now that I'm a grown adult and very confident in my, masculinity, I freaking love that movie. That movie is great. It has some of the best things, and that the little snowball fight always gets me right here. All of that notwithstanding, the scene where they're storming the castle and they open the door to the kitchen and all the
they're all just like,
drawers open
"Ah!"
up and the knives fly out and then
Yeah.
the stove animates and it's breathing fire that freaks me out. And as such, I can tell how terrifying an animated silverware swarm would be. Just
Yeah.
watch that movie.
I was gonna say, like, literally doesn't even really matter what silverware is being animated. It's going to be like awful. Yeah.
So it's just kind of fun. I like it. I enjoy the ability to be able to insert that into almost anywhere. Like, you could easily take something, you're running a horror themed game and you're just like, okay, you go into this place and then all the silverware has been animated because of ghost spirits.
Yep.
And then it flies around and attacks you.
Yeah.
But then you could have the exact same thing where you're like, oh, well, you're doing an intrigue based game or whatever it is, but it's like, oh, well, if you set off this trap or this alarm where you enter into, like, try to sneak in through the kitchen entrance, servant's entrance or something into this manor house that the Lord Mayor lives in, then all the silverware animates and attacks to defend the house. It's like you could easily flip it into anything, or okay, it's just a weird thing when you go to like a wizard's tower and you happen to go into his kitchen and then the kitchen utensils attack him because of all the crazy magic inside there. If you want to go all like Sorcerer's Apprentice kind of thing.
Yes, exactly like Sorcerer's Apprentice. Or, and I'm really gonna date myself because I've watched some very old Disney movies. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, at the very end of that movie, they animate a bunch of suits of armor, and they're like a literal army of like old school armor, which was super cool to me as a kid. Made it one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Yeah.
So yes, it's that same like idea of just like animating random objects is fun.
So Lord Deathquake follows up Luis Loza's follow-up as an initial question and asks, who would win in a fight between the Tooth Fairy swarm and the Silverware swarm?
I mean, okay, so
I have my answer.
I think honestly,
curious about yours.
It could be a toss-up. Depends on the Fae, is my opinion. But Tooth Fairies, I assume, are the same as in first edition, are vulnerable to cold iron. And your silverware is going to be, iron or maybe actually literal silver. And is not going to be as effective.
Sterling, probably.
Yeah. Plus, there's no teeth to clack. So, I don't know.
Sure.
I kind of rule in favor of it being a toss-up. But I don't know.
I also ruled it as a toss-up for much the same reason, unless you count the tins on a fork as being teeth.
Oh.
At which point I would give it to the Tooth Fairies.
That's fair. Depends. That's fair, yeah.
They're definitely
more
teeth if you have a spork, but I don't know if a spork comes with a silverware set.
I mean, yeah, I could argue that like if it's a bunch of forks that like they get an advantage because of the tines. I'd believe that.
Yeah, just snap them all off.
But if it's all spoons, it's just like, nope,
later.
the spoon is going to roll over them.
All right, so initial batch of silly questions aside, Luis Loza does have a serious question for us. And this is something that I mentioned earlier and said that we kind of address a little bit later on, which is now. That being that Bestiary 3 has been touted as the final standard Bestiary for 2e. I actually had to go and look into this because I was not aware of that. Apparently, I missed the notice, but I went back and I guess they mentioned that in passing at PaizoCon last year and then at Gen Con when they were discussing the book. So what monsters from 1e do you feel were important but missed in Bestiaries 1 through 3? I found 3 of them.
I was going to say, I'm not going to have any because I don't have a good enough memory to know what was in Bestiaries 1 through 6 in the original first edition plus what's in the second edition.
So first off, saying on theme with what we were talking about a little bit earlier, I would have liked to have seen the Tooth Fairy Monarchs included with the Tooth Fairies.
Yeah, no,
I would
that's
have liked
a
to see
one.
a 2-page spread and include the Monarchs in there. I found them very interesting. I found a lot of fun.
I betrayed you fast.
And they have a very, I betrayed you fast. They also have a very interesting kind of dynamic with the Tooth Fairies. And they add like this extra level to the Tooth Fairies other than just a bunch of tiny little creatures. I've also always had a soft spot for the Grillon, which is basically the giant four-armed gorilla.
Oh, yeah, no, I've run like tons of those.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen it included somewhere. They're pretty neat. I know that they're featured in Serpent's Skull.
Yeah, lots in Serpent's Skull, yeah.
Serpent's Skull, yes. Get all my skulls and fangs crossed between Adventure Path names. So I would have liked to have seen that. It's also kind of almost a Pathfinder specific monster.
Is
I'm
it
sure
not
someone's
in
going to be able to comment and tell me that it's. I'm not positive. It's something that I've always associated with Pathfinder, but it maybe.
D&D fans tell us we're wrong.
As for big name monsters, as for big name monsters that I would have liked to have seen in 2E, I think the Conqueror Worm. I really liked the Conqueror Worm. It's like the lore behind it, its design, the backstory, everything else to it. This idea of this basic giant psychic worm manipulating world events and all the rest of that. Like, I love the idea of the Conqueror Worm. And I think there are theories floated around for a little while, but that somehow like 1 or 2 of them was behind all the craziness going on in Galt. That, so
just
they're
driving
trying
people
to like
nuts.
psychically gain control of the nation.
Yeah.
And so I always hoped that there'd be an adventure path where they played a little bit more of a role, and maybe we'll still see that in 2E. But I would have liked to have seen them make a return here because they're again something I associate with Pathfinder when I think about them. I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan, and that's probably his most famous poem. So
there's a pun in there with Grillon.
Those are my shout outs as far as
Edgar Allan Poe. Haha.
Yep.
Did they do kaiju in these first 3 books?
I'm not positive.
I don't know. If they didn't, then that would be the thing that I would like to have seen. Because I will not spoil anything, but Godzilla monsters are super cool, and there was a cool interaction in one of the adventure paths that we played with one, and I like the idea of just a ludicrously huge monster as something that you face.
So Luis goes on to ask, if there were a monster book in the future, what kind of books should they be? I put a lot of thought into this.
Okay.
In large part because Luis does work with Paizo.
Hey.
So, I'm sure he's looking for some input out there. And so if anyone else has any input, feel free to mention those in the comments. We can kind of shout out to them a little bit later if you have some ideas for what you'd like to see. My personal thought is I would like to see bestiaries as part of Lost Omens line. I would like to see regional bestiaries for things like an Osirian bestiary, a Mwangi bestiary, basically compiling all of those creatures together into one location. It wouldn't need to be one of the thicker bestiary books. It could be a thinner book. but could include, and you wouldn't even need to make it that specific. You could even make it by region, like a Golden Roads Bestiary or a Broken Lands Bestiary.
Yeah.
And I think that you could probably dive into that and bring in a lot of stuff, because having run through Mummy's Mask, there's a ton of first edition monsters from the back matter of Mummy's Mask that have not made its way into second edition yet. The Pantheron Golem, for instance. Everyone likes laser eye golems.
Yeah, no, I can't find another way of wanting to do that either. I was thinking about it as well, and the doing it by regions has so many so much value, especially because the bestiaries are good as like a baseline that there's just like around here, but it's good to know, like, okay, I'm doing an adventure path that takes place on Absalom. In Absalom, here's a list of the most common stuff that's in Absalom, including some weird stuff, to just kind of like make it easy. Because like I know one of the big issues I've had in adventure paths is having to have all the books, and so it's like some of them was like at one point I had like 4 books open. It was like bestiaries 1 through 4, and then the adventure path to try to figure out like how to get everything going. So being able to have that in a more condensed fashion, I think would be really beneficial. So yeah, I can't think of any other way to do it.
Yeah. Quick aside, Jordan, I'm getting some crackle from your microphone. Do me a favor and stop your backup recording. Keep the online going, but stop
my backup. Uh-oh. Yeah. I lost my backup, y'all. He made me do it.
Okay,
though.
And that solved it.
Really? Okay, that's super weird.
Yeah, I think we're having 3 audio devices going 3 audio programs going simultaneously on your computer, so I think
it's too much.
Overstressing things.
Too much even for my computer. Goodness.
It's just too much.
All right, well now I'm not crackling, and I apologize to everybody for crackling because I can't hear that. Goodness. All right.
So, yeah. All right. So next Patreon stretch tier is build Jordan an even bigger computer.
Even more computers. Here's what we'll do. We get me a second computer, and I'll be like one of those cool guy streamers that runs the stream on one computer and all the other stuff on another computer.
Oh, there you go.
There's our $100 million goal.
We've got a plan.
Yep.
So thank you both, Luis, as well as Lord Deathquake, for all those interesting questions in your little game of tennis back and forth there. From there, we've got a question from Lord Tilted Axis. Favorite piece of new art? I always love this question.
Oh God, that I love and hate that question because it is impossible for me. I never can find my favorite piece of art.
I have one immediately.
Oh yeah.
And I'm probably going to blame Rachel for putting me into this mood. For those of you that are unaware, my wife very much loves tattoos. And
yeah, boy.
And beyond just, her own tattoos, that she loves watching tattoo shows. And so
like Inked and all that stuff,
like Inked and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
And so or Ink Master and all the rest of that. And so it has caused me to develop a deep love of Eastern art design, and especially the art design behind Eastern dragons. And as such, in the dragon entries, they talk about the Skydragon. And again, we don't have that there, but let me see if I can't at least get that somewhat up on screen for you. There we are. I'm gonna block myself here real quick, but let's see. You see that guy?
Yep. Very nice.
Look how beautiful that is.
It is pretty beautiful.
It has this amazing play of color. There's like this blending of the color. The shadow work is great. The soft gray of the stonework offset with the blue and the white. It's just a beautiful piece of art. So yeah, I kind of thought about it for a while, and I looked at every picture in this book, and that's the one that I always just kind of kept going back to.
Okay, yeah. It is really hard. I've literally been scrolling through while Rick was going through that, trying to find any of them that really stood out to me, but they're all so good.
To come back to you.
We can't come back to me because I'm the only one that's left. I'm going to put it out into kind of a weird one, the Wisps. I love the fact that they are like cute little like round circles with like little traily bits off them, like kind of like a comet, but they have little faces. I like that they have little faces, and it's cute.
The fire wisp especially has this little like should be a Studio Ghibli
Exactly
little
what it
like
reminds me of is the little tree spirits
creature.
in
Yeah.
Princess Mononoke. Yeah, exactly what it reminded me of. I think that's why I was like, that's fun.
Yeah, that guy.
Yep.
Loki the Poisoner asks us, this is more of a personal gripe than a real question, and states that Jess will know why. Jess is unfortunately not here, but I'm sure she knows why.
I may know why on her path.
There are so many good animals and beasts. Why do none of them have animal companion stat blocks?
Okay, that's a good one. As somebody who also looked through this book looking for new familiars, or animal companions, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. There aren't any. There are if you want to do familiars. They have some of them that can be familiars. I honestly think it was a space problem. That's my opinion.
Yeah. It might have been a space problem. It might also be in Starfinder, they made a point of focusing on the Alien Archive books and making them just as useful for players as they were for game masters.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that returned for them. Like, I don't know whether or not that ended up being a good thing or a bad thing for them. So I wonder if they just decided not to take that same step here, and as such make the Bestiaries a must-buy for game masters, but not really necessary for players.
I mean, it opens up the possibility of doing like an ultimate animal companion, compendium type book for them. There's definitely stuff in here that could be animal companions. Like I said, there's like one of the ones that I liked for familiars was what do they call them? Like cobble mites. Which they actually have them statted out as like swarms, but they have them like a little note on the side that says you can get these as familiars. They don't do anything. They're just like rocks with little mouths made of gemstones.
Yeah. So yep. And then Loki also has a follow-up question. Just want to shout out, Loki. I'm looking forward to your Netflix or your Disney Plus series.
Yes.
Okay, time for a real question. There are several examples of troops in this bestiary. How do you think these compare to the PF1 troop template, particularly the section where the troop gets smaller as its health goes down? I want to jump in here real quick and say that I love this. So troops start out as being a 4x4, basically just this square of dudes, 16 squares. And as they reduce, they actually have hit point thresholds, at which point they reduce in size.
Oh, that's cool.
Going down from 16 squares to 12 squares and then eventually 8 squares. And it reminds me a bit of tabletop gaming, playing Warhammer 40k and playing up against a Tyranid player that's just doing a rush
of waves of guys. Yeah.
And just watching this large unit get whittled down as they're charging your position. And so I love the idea behind this. I would love to see that implemented in something like, I think if they did something like that for swarms, that would be interesting. I think if they did something like that for oozes, that would be interesting.
It would be interesting also if you did like large scale combat. So if you're doing like army v army kind of combat, it'd be really interesting. But yeah, I must have missed that because I love that mechanic as well, because troops in first edition are just, they are the exact same as they are until they're not,
Well, and one of my bigger disappointments, and I won't get into edition wars because I survived the edition wars. I was there, and I don't want to get back into that again. One of the things that I did enjoy with Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition was the idea of the bloodied condition, that a creature would reach a threshold and then it would actually be impeded because of its injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that because, as many people know, I am a big fan of fantasy literature and things like that, particularly the literature of R.E. Salvatore, most notably the Dritz series.
Oh yeah, boy.
Quintet is actually pretty good.
Cleric Quintet's really good.
One of the key points with the Dritz series is not only is an extraordinarily skilled fighter and can sometimes take down, waves of enemies and rapid motion and all the rest of that, but when he gets into a fight against something approaching an equal, in Turi, for instance, then it ends up being pages of them fighting until one of them is tired enough to leave, the smallest gap or opening, and then it's death by 1,000 cuts. And so being able to actually do something that would allow you to do a battle of attrition would be more interesting to me, where it's, that it's that classic problem of a creature in Pathfinder or any video game that you play, where it's just as dangerous at 1 hit point as it was at 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you fight at full strength until you're at 0, basically.
Yeah. So I really like the idea of that. And I know it's be something that would be very difficult to implement like across the board to work into a couple of different creature stat blocks, but I do like the way that it works here. I feel like it just kind of flows a little bit better. Reminds me a little bit of the idea behind starship combat and having thresholds.
Yeah.
Where once your ship is damaged enough, you start taking further penalties.
Yeah. Which kind of can start a death spiral, which maybe that's why they don't do that as much, is because it can feel like you're just like you started at a disadvantage and you can never recover, Yeah. So maybe that's why they do it that way.
Could be. You have anything to weigh in on the troops?
I like it. I am excited to see if they will do this. They will do this in more ways. In actually utilizing troops, because especially like higher level, it's fun to see like, okay, you fought 2 kobolds and they were kicking your butt at first level, and now it's like you're 12th level and here comes a troop of them, or something like that. Like I hope they do some more like troops like that to just make like some of the lower level monsters able to kind of cut it in higher level encounters. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. Let's see. Lewis comes back in and asks for best new dragon. I have my opinion on this.
All right, I'll go for mine. I'm a little bit of a dark heart, deep down inside of me. I like the Underworld Dragon. It looks so cool. I was like, that looks super cool. It's all like purple and blacks and everything. Like,
it has a very neat design to it.
Yeah, so that's my personal favorite.
And again, it's one of those Eastern design dragons, so it's very neat, long serpentine. Mine is actually probably the House Drake, aka the pseudo dragon. I know it's a little bit cheap because it is a dragon. It is a dragon.
Yeah.
Technically, the subtype dragon. I have long been a fan of these guys.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To the point that in one of the longest games that I ran back when I was in high school, actually, one of my players, I just gave them a pseudo dragon because I was in high school and I didn't care as much about game balance. So it's just like, here you go, take a pseudo dragon. You don't need improved familiar. That's a wasted feat.
Yep.
To be perfectly honest, it didn't really unbalance anything. But I'm particularly a big fan of them since playing Curse of the Crimson Throne.
Oh yeah,
as they are very prevalent in the city of Corvosa. And so that I always just like the name House Drake.
Yeah, and they're cute.
Like, it's a drake, but it's a house drake.
It's a little cat-sized dragon. They're super cute.
Little cat-sized dragon. X-Root comes in and says, is there a creature that particularly stands out to you as being adapted well or even made more interesting with the new system? I do have an answer on this one also.
You know what? I'll let you go first because I did first in the last one.
The House Drake. The fact they actually stat out in the House Drake that they sharpen their claws on like silver embroidery and work around buildings in Corvosa, and by doing so they actually get enough flecks of silver onto their claws and teeth that they count as silver for the purpose of overcoming damage reduction, which works in their constant battle against the imps that are released from the academy in Corvosa. And so I loved that amazing blend of mechanics and lore. And that's something that I just didn't see as much in first edition. And so the freedom to just go, actually, this thing does need, like, how can we give this thing the ability to overcome silver damage reduction? I know, they're basically house cats, but instead of sharpening their claws in the drapery, they're sharpening their claws on your candelabras.
Which makes them exactly like cats.
Yeah, it's just, I love it. So that, I feel like that was an interesting way that it was a way that they took something and then improved it and adapted it to make it make sense for the role that the creature plays in the setting. So just love that.
Nice. Yeah, I like the way they redid golems. I know I've mentioned it previously, but like one of my big things I dislike, both as a GM as a player, is those creatures that like some players just are not going to be able to do anything during this combat. I've always been a huge detractor on that kind of encounter. So finding, making golems more accessible to spellcasters, also somebody who personally likes playing spellcasters, I think is really good in trying to make it, it'll still be a memorable fight. There's still going to be some weirdness and some cool things that it can do and all of that, but it gives you a reason to do a knowledge check on them. So that you can remember what it is that they're weak to and all of that stuff. And it makes it more dynamic. And then you also get the ability that, it's not just, fight to the bottom. Everybody hits hard, and just see who gets to the bottom first. It's very much like you can still be tactical. You can still do some creative kind of stuff to make it a lot more interesting. So I like that idea of, there isn't it's incorporeal and that means that nobody who has a melee weapon is going to be useful in this fight kind of stuff,
Yeah.
or as useful, I guess, especially at higher levels.
Yep. So, Dizzy Dwarf asked us, how many kobolds need to hide in a trench coat before they're considered troops?
A lot. I think more than a trench coat would hold. I imagine. I don't think like 3 kobolds in a trench coat will qualify as a troop.
Yeah, so I think the only way that you could pull this off, I believe rules as written, it would need to be at least 16.
Wow, that's a lot
to
of kobolds.
Occupy the 16 squares. So at which point they take up a 4x4 grid. So if you got a cloud giant trench coat, they could then all Voltron inside of this cloud giant trench coat.
Paizo, I need this in the next adventure path, like 110%. I need the
just
Voltron.
Get them one of those cool Viking helmets, but it has like the face mask and the beard.
Oh man, and it looks like a storm giant.
Yeah, just be like, hey guys.
Oh man, I love that.
Don't mind us.
I would also love to see a clockwork like mechanical man that's just piloted by a bunch of kobolds with like levers and stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be super fun. Or goblins. I'll take goblins too.
There was an old dragon adventure, not to go on much of a tangent here, but there was an old dragon dungeon adventure that I think it was a bunch of hobgoblins inside of a boat that had a like tarp put over the top of it and a little like headmast so that they made it look like it was basically the Loch Ness Monster. And they were like coming in and terrorizing a town on like foggy nights or something like that. And so they hire adventurers to like deal with this weird monster that's coming out of the sea. And then you find out it's a whole bunch of like hobgoblins on a longship. Anyway, that's
nice.
Just what immediately made me think of that.
That also makes me think of the hermit crabs in this. So they have giant hermit crabs, and the art of it is it has a boat on the back of its on its back instead of a regular shell because it's huge or it's large sized or whatever. And I was like, that's super cute. It's super cute.
Ben asks, are there any new amazing elementals?
The Wisps.
The Wisps.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're so cute. I am really hoping they make those familiars because I would love a familiar Wisp.
They're neat. I love their tie-in to the lore
Mm-hmm.
because it talks about how they travel around and they make music through resonance with the spheres. And I remember the first time I read about Desna and latching on to like the idea of the spheres of the universe. Like I love the idea of the whole sound of the spheres and that they amplify it. I also really like that all of their abilities are like music related.
Yep.
Like they have an in concert ability when they aid another, or their leaders are called conductors and groups of wisps are called symphonies.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
I love anything that mentions like music that is being made by other creatures because like, it doesn't get mentioned much in the lore that like, yeah, these are fully sentient creatures that can make their own music and have their own languages and cultures and things like that. So it's always fun when it's, like the choirs of angels and things like that. There's, I'm totally blanking on it, but in first edition, there's like one that specifically does like just sonic damage and stuff because it's it's part of a literal choir,
things like that.
Yeah.
Or the, Efreet death metal bands.
They would be death metal.
You'd imagine.
Yep. No, that sounds about right.
Graf writes in and asks, I don't know if this is a real question, but I miss templates from 3.5, like turning things into a vampire or a cyborg or a dragon into a Draco Lich or whatever. They were horribly broken mechanical mess, but they were amazing flavor. Sith Drummer also kind of clarifies all that into a simple question that says, do you miss creature templates from first edition? My answer is, I do wish that there are more.
They do have them, though. They are in second edition.
Yeah. They don't have quite as many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that there was the simple like Fiendish and Celestial templates like they had before.
Yeah, the like quick add templates that just like, because I remember they had them in like little chunks that you could just like see in the back of the book that you could just go and add on real quick.
Yeah, just like quick tack on a couple abilities and all the rest of that. I would love to see rules kind of like the organization templates that just give one or two alternative abilities that you could throw onto a creature and kind of theme it around that, where it's just like, okay, this is a dog, but it lives too close to the abyss.
Yeah.
So now it's an abyssal dog. Yeah, really, like I would love to see more templates like that. I don't think that there needs to be the whole slew of templates, and they do a job of kind of, like, for lack of a better term, already providing for a lot of things that would have been templates otherwise.
Yeah.
So things like the I can't remember, they're out of the new Ancestries guide. You could basically pay people that have been warped by magic or warped by radiation.
Flesh warped. Yeah.
Which would have just kind of been a template.
That would have been a template for sure.
Although still having something like that to quickly apply to a, okay, well, I'm running orcs, but I'm running orcs in the Mana Wastes, and I want them to be crazy mutated by magic orcs. It would be nice to have a quick template that does that.
Yeah. Or like a guide on how to make those kinds of templates. Because they had like the what was it, like the point system for abilities in first edition that you could basically like use to make your own creature and get it to the right CR of what you're trying to do. They don't have that in second edition, as far as I know.
Yeah, and a lot of that was designed around the idea of doing like ancestries or races in second edition or in first edition to try to come up with like, okay, how much does it unbalance the system if you can fly at will?
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Sith Drummer goes on to ask, are there any creatures from first edition in this book that were either notably improved or translated into second edition particularly well?
That's tough because I don't GM enough to really know the stat blocks all that well. That's a good question. I don't know enough about the stat blocks to be perfectly honest to make that kind of determination.
If I'm gonna go with one, I'm probably gonna go with the God, I can never pronounce this thing. Pangolin.
Pangolin?
Say that's right.
Is that
no,
pangolin?
No, not the little animal.
Not the little anteater thing.
No, the pangolins are the usually a woman's head, but it's the woman's head that still has like the spine attached, as well as like the lungs and the entrails, that they're like vampires that rip themselves off of the body and go flying around and attacking people.
They're the ones that kind of look like Urgathoa? Is that the ones you're thinking about?
All they've got left is their lungs, basically. They look a little bit more like that canopic jar thing that you fought once, except for it's got a lady's head on top of it.
Oh, okay. Fancy.
They're terrifying vampire things. And I feel like second edition kind of let them dive into the strangeness of them a little bit more. In that they've still got their like entangling ability and their bite and all the rest of that, but they do have a neat ride corpse where they can insert their entrails into a humanoid body, allowing them to appear as and move around like a normal human. The body has 10 hit points, and when the body is destroyed, the pangolin is ejected and harmed. The body becomes a corpse. If it is neither controlled by the pangolin or stored in the alchemical vat, it decays as normal, which they were able to do in first edition, but they just kind of not necessarily hand waved it, but it was almost more like, vampires have to sleep in their coffins. They just had to reinsert themselves. And there's as a side note, there's a really horrible, think it was a Bollywood movie. I'm not positive. About this thing that's like the lowest budget B horror movie that you could ever see. Like, again, you, it could immediately go like, okay, there's the actress, and then she's screaming, and then suddenly, you know, here's bad. Like, you can tell where they just cut off the bottom of the thing so that you can see the mannequin head fly up in the air, and you can see the strings attached to it as it's like waving its way around through.
Oh,
If you get
man.
a chance to watch it, it is so bad that it's honestly still just bad, but it's still pretty amusing to watch.
Are you sure we haven't fought one of these? Because this seems like I think you're right there. The
you have
Canoptic
fought
Jar
one, but
things. Yeah.
you have fought one, but I don't want to spoil because it's not from anything from any of the podcasts actually.
Yeah. Okay. Because I looked at this and I was like, this looks familiar. Okay.
Yes, you have fought one previously in another adventure path, but it's kind of a big deal in that adventure path.
Yeah.
So, Ben asks, what creature types seem to be represented a lot in this book? Fae.
For the, I was gonna say for the amount that you usually see in a Bestiary book, Clockworks. There's like 4 Clockworks in here, and that's a lot.
Yeah, lots of Fae. There are tons of Fae left, right, and center.
Yeah, lots and lots of Fae.
And undead, but pretty much every Bestiary.
Yeah, that's yeah. We can pretty much assume there's gonna be tons of undead. I will say there's also a surprising number of call them exotic animals. So like the pufferfish is in here, pangolins, speaking of things that I'm mentioning, camels, like there's actually a fair number of just like mundane creatures that I thought was pretty cool.
Ooh, camels, how exotic.
I mean, they're not exotic in Osirian, but they'd be exotic in like, you know, Corvosa.
And lastly, as far as the Discord questions are concerned, Dizzy Dwarf asks, are there any creatures that you wish were substantially higher or lower level version? Personally, I am, as many people know, I'm an amateur, I guess, Lovecraftian scholar, really. And I enjoy many of the things that come from his work, particularly the Migo, which were originally from Whisper in Darkness. And they do include the Migo in here. I would like to have seen a higher level Migo also that kind of delves a little bit more. Like this one touches a little bit on their weird super science. But like diving into that a little bit more, or their strange alchemy that they use, would all be pretty fun. Especially if they gave them some sort of ability to like make little puppet people that they could then, you know, have conversations through whispering. Sorry, I apologize. Spoiler alert for a 100-year-old story. Although Whisper of Darkness is actually pretty good. So go out and read it. If you really love dogs, be warned that there's a lot of dog death.
Rude.
Basically this guy's under attack from aliens, and his solution is to just throw more dogs at them. Which works surprisingly well. Apparently Migos should have some sort of like vulnerability to dog bites or something.
On my end, I have a hard time with this because I'm used to just things being what they are. I love Clockwork Dragons. I've never gotten a chance to run them or have them run for me. They're just too high a CR. So having like a diminutive version or something like that to make it more approachable, that you might find it before, like, you know, the very last fight in a book of 6 kind of situation, I think would be really nice because they're super cool. They've got like little wings that are made out of tarp and stuff. Like they're super nifty, but you just, you know, it's hard to work that in without it being just kind of like out of place. Like maybe in Mummy's Mask it would make sense, but you know, I've always wanted to see it be a little bit lower challenge rating.
Yep, I can think of a couple of adventure paths where they make sense, but I don't know if they're included in there.
Probably not.
So yeah, that's it for our Discord questions. Do we have some questions from the chat that we want to go
through? Do we? All right, we've had a lot of stuff.
Right. Already a little bit over an hour, so I think we could probably knock these out real fast.
Yep.
I want to make sure that everyone has their voice heard.
Yep. All right. Graph says, what monster do you most want to run, in parentheses, use against players, that you haven't yet?
That I haven't yet. That immediately springs one to mind. Let me find
oh, gracious. All
right, so I'm going to throw one out there just because I find this one interesting. They've added in these sick tempora, as in creatures from the dimension of time. Intense emotions are more than just ethereal things. They accumulate over time from things like critical mass of motion caused by historical event or settlement passing down from powerful sentiment for generations. Including these are the misery sic tempora, which are creatures born of intense pain and suffering. They are armless, six-legged misery sic tempora are some of the most numerous of their kind, since misery is an ubiquitous experience of living.
I mean,
So
like you do.
they have this uncanny pounce that basically the misery sic tempora rolls dimension of time lore for their initiative. So they basically initiative by seeing through time, which is just really fun. They can inflict misery, which is just kind of neat. They've got a whole bunch, and their inflict misery is the misery sic tempora's life action was a claw strike that damaged the target, and the creature must then attempt a will save, and regardless of the outcome, the target is immune to the effect of misery for 1 minute. And it failure causes clumsy 2, enfeebled 2, and stupefied 2.
Good gravy.
So they're just a lot of fun. And also, let me throw this up here for everyone. I guess warning if you have body horror concerns. They're very terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Looking. Look at that monstrosity.
Good gracious. That is too many hand legs.
I will say that is one of those creatures that the artwork sold it for me.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I saw that artwork when I was flipping through the book, I was like, what are you? And how do I kill somebody with you?
Okay, I'm gonna pick kind of a weird one. I think this is new because I haven't seen it before, but I'm probably wrong. Is the Corrupted Relic. So it is an item, so it's actually like an amulet, but it holds an angry malevolent spirit. So basically you pick this up and then a spirit forms and attacks you. And I love those kinds of things that change how you see the game. And I feel like that's one of those things, like when that happens, you're going to be paranoid about every single item you pick up afterwards. I also love the fact that when it detects a creature and uses a reaction to do a sudden manifestation, it actually gets a +4 bonus on its initiative check because it's like, surprise! So I love
the
that
jump scare item. Yeah.
Yes, it's the jump scare item. I love that. Like, I think that's super fun. And like I said, you'll be paranoid about every single item afterwards.
Yeah. No, nothing upsets players more than attacking their treasure.
It's true. Okay, so next. Baron Altoran asks, I wonder if the Guaykubu have the apparent Pathfinder 1E ability to jump to another campaign. I think that's an Us special.
Yeah, pretty sure that's an Us special. We'll see what happens in Hell's Rebels.
Yes.
If I can find a way.
Baron also asks, if you get stuck in the Ouroboros ring, do you have to start singing the Smashing Pumpkins 1979?
Yes.
I'm going to say I don't know what that song is, so I'm going to go look that up after this.
It's written into the subtext.
Ah, cool. Nifty. Okay, so Rev Khan, aka TJ, says you can summon 2 fairies with the new Summon Fae spell. So you can get them to fight on your side for once. That's interesting.
From a game master perspective, neat. From a player's perspective,
it's one of those
dangerous.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for their sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Yes. Curse you. Yes.
Renwald99 comments, I felt like this bestiary was the best of FTP monsters. I kind of feel the same way. I had some really memorable monsters from our broadcast adventures and non-broadcast, I might add.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Bone Golem made it into another bestiary or if that one was. I don't remember.
No, it's a fossil golem in this one, and I don't think they have another golem that's like the Bone Golem. Maybe that's another one of the ones that's
because I will say, as far as memorable fights and everything, the thing that can throw its rib cage as
a trap to like entangle you.
Amazing! I love that thing.
That was a really memorable fight. Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of throwbacks in here that I was like, God, it's like a trip down memory lane as I'm looking through this book.
Yeah. No, I definitely like looked at some stuff, and I won't spoil what adventure it came from. And I was like, I remember when my party almost had to fight that, and then we had a druid in the party.
Yep.
It was very charismatic for whatever the heck this thing was, you know. Um, let's see. Baron Altorn asked another question. Was there any monster ability you saw that made you say, really? That's just silly.
Not that immediately jumped out at me in this one. I'm sure I
Yeah.
probably missed one. Like nothing like the skeleton throwing his head off at people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I didn't see anything that I was like, oh yeah, no, that's just for a gag, you know, like I don't know if it'd be seriously used or anything like that. Yeah, all right, we're gonna move on because I can't think of anything either.
Yeah, I apologize. Unfortunately, like nothing that immediately jumped out at me. Oh wait, there was it's not necessarily silly. Um the Kappa, which is actually statted out in here. It's not in that I went, okay, what, that's silly. It was more one of those I went, this must be some part of a myth that I'm not familiar with, where they have a head bowl, which is a depression on top of its head, which is filled with water. Spilling, evaporating, or otherwise removing all the water from the top of the Kappa's head, it reduces all of their speed to 5 feet until the basin is again refilled. The Kappa who becomes prone must succeed at a DC 15 reflex save or spill the water, and a Kappa who becomes unconscious automatically spills their water.
Why did that suddenly make me think of Charmander's tail in the Pokemon anime?
Also, these guys
Where
are
it's sad.
they're very cute.
Yeah, they
Oh
are
my
super
God.
cute. little turtle creatures.
I was trying to remember where that was because I was like, I remember there's a ridiculous turtle in here. But again, I think it's probably just a part of its mythology that I'm not familiar with.
It's probably some like it has to like always be touching water or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. I associate Kappa with like the water, just from Harry Potter, so I don't really know their mythology all that well. Let's see. Extrude asked if the sun laser zombies get into PF2. I don't know. I don't think we saw them yet.
So not yet.
Yep, not yet. Which means they could.
Again, Lost Omens, Golden Roads, Bestiary.
Yep, exactly. Let's see.
Laser zombies, laser statues, laser everything.
Let's see. Baron asked another question. He's asking all the questions.
Awesome.
Sheer curiosity, what do you think of the battle cards that have been released for the first 2 bestiaries? I'll be honest with you, we don't play in person, so we haven't had a chance to really use them. If we were playing in person, I would love them to be able to just pull those out. Yeah, I mean, super useful, super helpful for, especially if you're running a lot of different stuff, to be able to have like those tiny little stat blocks and everything.
I think there's something that I'm very glad exists. I think once people are able to get together and do large conventions and things like that again, for anyone that is doing something related to Pathfinder Society, that those will be a phenomenal resource because it saves breaking your back lugging around however many bestiaries you need to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I actually own a set, but I've never used them.
I mean, we've got the PDF version of them, so that's how I know what they look like. I haven't bought them yet either. Don't ask how we have the PDF site versions. All right, speed runs kills.
I'm pretty sure Paizo gave them to. You made it sound like you got it off the black market.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get off the black market. Paizo gives us review copies of stuff in PDF.
Don't ask how many people had to die to get this PDF.
I smuggled them out of Paizo's warehouse myself, in a Italian job style. All right, last question comes from Speedruns Kill, who says, speaking of Lovecraftian horror, what are your favorite Lovecraftian monsters in Pathfinder?
Lingulls are awesome. I'm always a big fan of them. Night Gaunts, just because a tickle demon.
I was going to say Night Gaunts. They're my favorite because they're so ridiculous with the tickling you.
Yeah. One of my favorite of HPL's short stories is the Color Out of Space. And so the titular Color Out of Space, which they statted out for first edition, is great. Probably the number one would be the Hounds of Tyndalos. And
like the
mind
Hounds,
they're Lovecraft adjacent. I believe they're actually a Frank Belknap Long creation. I'd have to look that up. I'm not positive off the top of my head. Either that or that might have been something that he borrowed from Chambers. alongside the King in Yellow and all the rest of that. But I'm not positive off the top of my head. But no, the Hounds of Tyndalos, like I love the idea of anything that just it moves through literally another dimension that we perceive as angles. That just it sings to me because it is so weird and out there that you can't even think about how it's accomplishing it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the epitome of weird fiction.
Yeah,
So,
and it does a really good job, especially in first edition, with the Hounds of Tyndalos, of making their weirdness like make sense from a mechanic standpoint.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting for the
Yeah.
Hounds. But no, I'm gonna go with the Night Gaunts because anything like I can remember. I will not specify when, but we had somebody get grabbed by a Night Gaunt, flown up to the top of a tower and tickled for
Yeah.
I don't know how long it was. And just remember the ridiculousness of getting them down from this tower because, of course, there wasn't like a ladder spiraling up or anything like that. And just remembering like the ridiculousness of just it's a thing that just tickles you and scares you. Like that's its entire vibe.
Yeah,
I think it's fun.
And of course the Shoggoths and the Dark Young of Shub-Niggurath are both classics. So yeah, I mean those would be my top one, but honestly I'd probably give it to the Hounds of Tyndalos, even though it's not technically a Lovecraft creation, but it is a Lovecraftian monster. It is part of the greater mythos,
so it counts.
And so it counts, and they're just such a fun creature. And I think one of the first ones introduced into the Pathfinder setting, because I wanted to say that was maybe book 3 or 4. Actually, I think it was book 4 of Rise of the Rune Lords. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's all of our questions.
All right. Well, we had a lot of really good interaction with everybody today.
Yeah,
and,
thank you so much, everybody who submitted questions for us.
So
this would have been a really short review otherwise.
Yeah. So overall, Jordan, what do you think?
I think I said it midway through this. Absolutely buy this book. It's got so many interesting things, especially if you homebrew. There is a ton of interesting stuff in here that would really spice up your games. Some new stuff, some old stuff. Just a lot to be excited about in here, including, like I said, if you are looking for a couple of familiars, they got a couple of familiar options in here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a great book. If it's going to be the last of the core bestiaries, and then they're going to start branching out into anything, I think that they've established a strong enough foundation that they could then kind of branch out into specific things. That if they wanted to do something like individual sections of the world, if they were doing part of the Lost Omens lines, or if they wanted to do something like the
giant book of divs. Yeah.
Well, if they wanted to do like the Book of Aberrations, the Book of Giants, the Book of whatever, they could also go that route. They could go the 3.5 direction of doing a Fiend Folio.
Fiend Folio, yeah.
Although the Fiend Folio surprisingly had a lot of things that weren't fiends.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said that they could do it as like almost like a gazetteer thing where it has like the locations, it has like notable NPCs and towns and monsters. So you could do some pretty interesting stuff if you wanted to just roll it up into an everybody should buy this kind of a setup.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they combine that in a little bit of the same way that they had the codexes in first edition.
Yeah,
the NPC codexes, but also including things like, okay, here's going to be the big Book of Aberrations, and here's a big codex thing on a whole bunch of crazy old ones, cults, and creatures that are directly influenced. Especially if you're doing something like the Agolthu, you could then tie into things like the Flesh Warped, as well as various types of NPC stat blocks for things like Gilman, who I think are still called Gilman.
No, they're called something else now.
Yeah, well,
they say they're commonly called this, but apparently they have a name now that I've completely forgotten because I'm a bad person.
Oh, I haven't had to run them in anything. I'm running a desert campaign.
It's fair.
Running a forest campaign, and I'm running a city campaign. Maybe eventually, that one's at least a coastal city. We might see something happen in second edition.
Yeah, it's possible. Anything's possible.
Yep. So I'm gonna guess that's gonna be it for us this evening. I also approved of this book. I very much liked it. I suggest people go and pick it up. I enjoyed it. If you're not going to pick it up, I would suggest that you play in some Pathfinder Society stuff and then let somebody try to kill you with some of these monsters. It'd be a fun way of going about it, too.
Yep. Remember to recall knowledge so you know what's killing you.
Recall knowledge as often as possible.
Knowledge is knowing is half the battle.
Yep. Get that whole, I can't remember the name of the feat off the top of my head, but where you, if you fail, you get one piece of true knowledge and one piece of fake knowledge and then roll with that.
Yep.
Because that always makes me happy.
I just thought of something. There isn't anything in here that's like the what if you crit fail? Like they could add in into some of those regional things too if they had the spaces, like some of the false information you get if you crit fail the knowledge checks.
Yeah. Again, that's one of my favorite things about writing up the recall knowledge results for Hell's Rebels is writing up the critical failure results. So I can just be like, it's like I make it this recall knowledge check. It's like, I'm pretty sure that Laria runs this Longroads coffee house somewhere in the northern portion of the city. It's like, I critical failed. I'm pretty sure she runs a coffee house out of the, northern portion of the city and also an underground fight club. It's like, yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I would have been down if she did run a fight club. I'd have been like, okay, this lady is tough as nails, The
first rule of Longroads Coffee House is you don't talk about Longroads Coffee House. Unless it's about the coffee and donuts.
It's all about Club LCH.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for us this evening. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for all the excellent questions to everyone on our Discord, as well as our chat here. You can join us again. I believe that we are planning on doing another review here soon. So I would check all of our social media stuff for the details on that. As well as our Discord, which if you're not part of our Discord, you can be just by going to find-path.com and clicking on the little Discord link and say hi to everyone when you get there, because they're a bunch of great people.
And play some society games. We have a very active society community, and maybe some of these creatures show up in society.
Yeah, maybe some of these creatures will try to kill you.
That'll probably be in the future, but I don't know anything about that. But for all I know, our upcoming special, which is going to be a Jess Jenkins original for our 1-year anniversary of the Discord, I do know that she has some stuff from this book in there. Not spoiling anything. I just know that she's mentioned that she has stuff. So, upcoming shenanigans.
There you go. All right. Well, until next time, good luck, Pathfinders.
Bye, Pathfolk.
Ba-da-da-da-da.